What is up, everybody? My name is Richard Terrell. I go by Kirby Kid, and you are watching DO Live, a daily stream show in which we talk about game design. I've been playing Mega Man 11, but we're going to take a small break and talk about learning, because that's a frequent and always relevant topic when it comes to games and game design. One of the games that I've been working on for the past almost 2 years is Enlighten, and it's a game about learning. And the whole point is to learn how you learn and learn the art of learning, something like that. Learn. But new person to the DO Discord, Carl, posted an article that I have currently on the screen. Article's titled "The Hard Thing About Learning Hard Things," and I read it and I didn't like it, so we're going to talk about it and go down the page and kind of branch off from there. So the beginning of the article talks about how do you learn something nobody can teach you, and I don't even know who this person is. You know who this person is, Carl?
Yeah, he's a software engineer. I know him because I took an algorithms class that he was teaching,
Oh,
so I
wow.
learned algorithms.
Yeah, based on the article, he's like, I'm good at poker, I learned blockchain. Is blockchain that new buzzword cool thing like machine learning, Marcus?
Yeah, I think it's the foundation of cryptocurrency.
And it looks like he has some other topics here. So the guy seems to have some good experiences and some cred behind him. But the article opens, I attribute it almost entirely to my aptitude for unstructured learning, as he calls it, kind of learning required when delving into the cutting-edge field, navigating a new job, or creating anything genuinely new. Notably, it's a polar opposite of what is taught in schools and what most people call education. Okay. Nothing too crazy there. I don't know why this music video is here, but if I press play, I'm sure YouTube's going to flag me, so I'm not going to press play. And it says, in structured learning, like in school, there are exercises you can follow, teachers who will guide you in a well-trodden path from A to Z. The hard part is just showing up to do the work every day. Do not agree. About every paragraph that he describes the current way that people teach or current learning systems, I do not agree with. But in general, yeah, school's pretty structured. Each class can be very different. Teachers kind of dictate how the curriculum's going to go and what they'll test. Teachers guide you, sure. Well-trodden path from A to Z. The hard part is just showing up to do the work every day. Like, if that were the case, then, a lot of the students would have relatively similar success going through school and, just being attendance in class and kind of attempting to do the homework would get them mostly close to passing with flying colors, getting a good grade, learning the material. But in general, I make a distinction between sort of getting by with barely passing grades and actually learning the material. And it seems like so many people went through school, and whether they struggled or did well in the class, even a lot of those people didn't really learn what was being taught. And they don't remember what they studied, and they certainly don't apply it to anything else. So, I started to question whether or not they learned this stuff at all. In high school, we had biology, then chemistry, then physics, and then I took AP biology, so I had science, all 4 years. And one of the things they were trying to teach us starting in middle school is what the scientific method was and why it was important and how you can go from observing something in the world to extracting some interesting and consistent piece of information about it, and how important that information is for doing other cool stuff and moving on and building rockets and computers and everything else. So we started small in middle school, and then by the time you get to high school, you learn to basically dive deep into a world where people have applied the scientific method, and you get to sort of see firsthand the language they use, the things they consider, the things they've uncovered, all this stuff, right, because of that. And I think that's like one of the primary purposes of your high school science classes. Like, you apply it to biology, you basically apply the same thing to chemistry, and then you apply the same thing to physics. And even though all those fields are different, what they're trying to say is, like, the world is made up of many different types of things you can look into, but we're going to take this approach, detailed and structured approach to engaging with it and learning about it, right? And you can go through any of these classes and just, copy the homework, sleep through class, purchase the answer book for the textbook or whatever online, and and ultimately just study for the tests in a way that makes you forget it. But all that is not learning. That's just getting by taking tests and sort of doing the least of what's required of you. So I don't know if either of you make any kind of a distinction like that when it comes to school. But if you have any similar stories of different kinds of students that have gone through the classes that you've taken and the kind of things that you see them doing compared to the other students, yeah. But he goes on to say, most people spend the first 2 decades of their lives performing small quantized tasks of structured learning, competing with their peers over easily gradable benchmarks. Structured learning like this is basically useless outside the classroom and trivia game shows. Again, if you consider the skill floor of public education, which is just kind of brute force memorizing things, learning things only for the test or only when it's required and moving on with your life, this kind of description would probably be pretty accurate. But every class that I had, the teachers would challenge us to think more and do more and apply it more to our lives and bring more creativity to it and to think through the material instead of just at the material. So like, this doesn't really apply. Like, I felt like my teachers were much more concerned with the actual subject and how we were engaging with it rather than, worrying too much about easily gradable benchmarks and things like that. So it's kind of easy to get jaded in terms of standardized testing and other elements of the public education system, but I feel like this is definitely leaning more on the extreme side of things with this statement. In the real world, there's no textbook or curriculum, there's no way to practice, there's no source for continuous feedback, there are no teachers, it's just you and whoever you can convince you to help. Yeah, no. Like, I know he prefaced the beginning of the article, he's talking about things where you're in the cutting edge field and navigating a new job or creating anything genuinely new. So creating something new, yeah. Cutting edge field, sure. You're on the edge of things, but navigating a new job, like, no. Navigating a new job will most likely be how he described school. Well-worn expectations, slotting into a particular function, role, or task, and people around you probably have some experience and able to guide you into those tasks because, like, no one for a new job is typically hired to do something that nobody else in there knows how to do. But hey, maybe that's just me.
Can I contribute something here?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think part of the reason why there's a disconnect here is that, so when he's talking about like structured learning, so like he was a professor at a school called App Academy, which is a coding boot camp for learning to be a software engineer.
Mm-hmm.
Targeted at someone who's going from, so say you were like a lab technician in like biotech or something, and you want to become a software engineer. It's like you have no skills in that area, so it's this completely new thing. It's a completely new job. You have no idea how it works. So like the guy who wrote this article, he went from being a professional poker player to being a software engineer. Went to work in what's the term for it? It was like fraud prevention type stuff. And so to do that, he got hired kind of on the, I don't know if he got, well, anyway, I think I saw a speech that he gave about it, and he was kind of describing this algorithm that he tried to spot fraud, and I think kind of what he had to do that is he had to like invent that. So it wasn't like he just went and found this algorithm that was like fraud prevention algorithm. He had to like make up like how that would work. No one had really done it before, and that's kind of, I think that's kind of what he's targeting here. He's kind of saying that like, a really nice school like App Academy or like, a really like school is only going to teach you, so much. You can learn algorithms that are already invented, but like you can't invent new algorithms. You can't like, create a new job that didn't exist before. And so that's kind of what he's getting at here, is because like, like he's talking about like blockchain. Like blockchain didn't exist when he was studying algorithms. I don't think it was like invented partway through his studies. Someone invented it, and then he just started learning it. And so, when this whole like industry of blockchain like came up, and there's like all kinds of people getting jobs and stuff, and so he decided to go and work in that. area where like none of these jobs existed before. No one knew how to do any of this stuff. It was just a brand new, a completely brand new, just invented thing. And so that's kind of, I think, the direction it's coming out with this.
Yeah, that all makes sense. Oops, echo. That all makes sense. I think what I'm trying to say is usually when people try to make a distinction like this, when they start a topic, there really isn't. It's really more along the lines of a spectrum with a lot more connecting lines than they give it credit for. And like I was trying to draw with the high school examples, there's definitely a way we understand the high school experience being a very sort of systematic, you're just cast one role, one little student slot of many in all of those different sort of curriculums and tests and guides that they have, and you answer the questions and it's over, pass or fail. But then what they were trying to do beyond that, which is like the real education, or when education gets more and more sort of real and more quality and more effective, is requires more than the minimum. It requires people to bring something of their own lives into it, their own curiosity, their own engagement, their own perspective, their own tastes and hobbies and things like that, and constantly be thinking and applying and pushing past the minimum. And I feel like even on a high school scale, the students who get the most out of it realize that and engage with that, while the students who don't just see all the tests as just these sort of arbitrary barriers that they are made to jump through. Is a similar way to saying, like, the way this guy is describing unstructured learning is actually a lot more similar to the kinds of experience you might get in school as well. It just might be maybe one step farther or one step less familiar. But we'll see, I guess, as we go further down in this article, kind of what that's getting at. We'll move a little faster. In the real world, no textbook, blah, 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 no way to practice, no source. So how do you learn something you can't teach you? Unstructured learning requires wandering. You must poke around on your own, use trial and error, search, explore, stumble, and discover. 10,000 hours deliberate practice when trying to learn something no one else knows how to do. And this is the only kind of learning the world cares about. So this is also disagreement. My theory, and from what I've observed, is all learning requires, if you want to do like anything significant, anything meaningful with your learning and have any sort of effective application, you need to poke around. You need to be motivated by your own sense of curiosity and internal intrinsic motivation. Trial and error is like the foundation of all learning. So this isn't a thing you do for unstructured learning. This is a thing you do, period, like just to engage with the world. And I know the more sophisticated style of trial and error can be described as the scientific method, which involves thinking a little bit more effectively about your trials and your hypotheses, and then running that loop. But trial and error can be as simple as just blind trying things and then figuring out what doesn't work until you figure out what works. Nothing too special about trial and error, but I feel like it's something we're always doing. Search, explore, stumble. These are the things you do when you try. When you stumble when you try, and you explore when you're curious, and so on and so forth. So I feel like these are the things that are important for all learning, and it has to be there for all learning. You can't really learn without doing these kinds of things. It's my position. So basically, if this is really all he's arguing for, anything else that he says later in the article is just going to be basically like, this is what real learning is all along. So it's not really a matter of unstructured versus school learning. These are the quality components that make up good learning, period. He's like, this is the only kind of learning the world cares about. Again, it's a spectrum, right? But sure. See, and then like if you just consider the bottom end of the spectrum, which just is like route memorization, maybe not fully understanding the stuff you are memorizing, but you memorize it anyway. I mean, if people memorize a lot more information in their lives, I think we would be a lot better off than we are now. What we have now are people just kind of winging it, copying other people, and getting by faking it till they make it, or so to speak. But regardless of what field or activity you're doing, if you just straight up memorize just about everything you could while giving it the same amount of sort of hands-on experiential effort, I think you would have a much better experience. You'd learn more. You'd have a higher knowledge threshold, and that would go a long way to just basically improving your learning in the first place. So I don't make such a hard distinction between what I consider to be the bottom of Bloom's taxonomy, which is just straight up memorizing stuff and remembering. And I feel like you need that to get to the higher levels of Bloom's anyway. Are you familiar with Bloom's?
I'm not.
I don't even know if you're watching the stream, but I can describe it to you easily enough. What? Bloom's taxonomy. I bring this picture up all the time because it's so useful. Something that I heard about when I was in elementary school, actually, and it's something that's been useful ever since. Open image, new tab. Here we go. But it's a way of just categorizing different ways that you can sort of apply your mind or stress your mind when learning. In the very bottom, it's a pyramid shape, so the bottom has the biggest wedge, and as you go up, it's less and less. But from bottom to top, it's remembering, then understanding, then applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. And what we know now is creating, evaluating, and analyzing, the top of the pyramid, are all pretty much equal. You know, one isn't necessarily on a higher tier than the others, but all three of those are on a higher tier than the first three, which definitely tier up one by one. In order to understand, you got to remember stuff. In order to apply, you got to understand it, and so on and so forth. So I don't underestimate the power of the bottom of Bloom's taxonomy. Recalling facts, defining things, duplicating things, listing things, memorizing things, repeating things, and stating things. It's very important. So whenever other people just like, oh, they just make you memorize stuff, or do we ever need to memorize things? Why aren't we past this? I'm like, you'll never get past it. It's a freaking pyramid. Like, you build it from the ground up, and everything that you know is going to be relying on the things that you put in your head. So yeah, I see learning overall in education much more in a spectrum that's broken up like this, rather than, school bad, unstructured learning good kind of a thing. Yeah, feel free to jump in at any time, because I know I can talk a lot.
Yeah, I think kind of applying this Bloom's taxonomy to the article. I think kind of what the article is talking about is kind of the create part of the pyramid, like the top part, and then it's not arguing that you don't need the other stuff. It's just saying, like, because so many people do that stuff, it's not as valuable. Like, if you wanted to.
Yeah, if you want to innovate. So I guess we'll look over the 5 principles. He says look stupid, because when you're learning, it's better to ask a bunch of questions and look stupid, so then eventually you'll know things instead of be embarrassed or fake the things you know. Ask that third question. It takes courage and bravery to ask the third question. If somebody says, like, why does this happen? They say, because of this. And you say, well, why does that? And they say, because of this. And then that mystery, elusive, courage requiring third question, but how does that work? And then you might actually get somewhere, because a lot of times knowing things is a chain of knowing other things. And if you just stop arbitrarily at like 1 or 2 steps, the whole point of understanding things deeply is to get as deep as possible, or to know things all the way down the chain. So he says, keep asking questions. Immerse yourself in stuff. If you want to learn language, move to that country. It's a really good way to immerse yourself. He immersed himself in blockchain. He read a bunch of stuff, white papers, blog posts. Most of the time it didn't make sense, but he kept doing it. He says, double down on your strengths. Don't shy away from them for whatever reason. And he says, find excuses to teach. There's another sort of common teaching, learning, measuring stick that people often cite, and it's like, oh, if you don't truly learn something, to teach somebody else. And I'm like, well, you don't need to teach somebody else. That's not actually a requirement to understanding something or learning something deeply, but the process of teaching someone else stresses so many of the Blooms, right? You have to synthesize things and consider the things your audience knows and doesn't know, and find bridges and ways to connect concepts, and oftentimes the random way that they approach the concept you think you're teaching will expose expose areas and ways of thinking about that you never considered. So you just gain more experience by doing so, and it's never a bad idea, but certainly not required. And he ends on this concept of learning to learn. The art of learning is more subtle. It's in how you explore uncharted territory. It's how humankind learns anything for the first time. Best learners are people I most respect. They fight for their learning through small acts of bravery. They explore, take risks, look stupid, and insist on leaving no rocks unturned. Though I usually fall short, this is the kind of learner I aspire to be. So then we can consider this more in a gaming lens, right? And you're like, okay, well, let's say you wanted to innovate in game design, right? You want to do something with the design of your game that actually innovates, brings something new to the table, or otherwise solves a pre-existing problem. Well, when you think about a lot of people that innovate all the time, whether it's just like a small twist on something or a really good like system that a lot of people should copy, like lock on camera when done correctly, a lot of games, 3D games, don't have very good lock on, and if only they looked at some of the best examples, they would improve the way that their game plays. But some things are very technical and very systemic like that, and some are more artistic and just rely on sort of finding combinations and ways of expressing things or ideas that other people haven't commonly done. But either way, I feel like creativity and innovation, which is very similar to what he's talking about here, can be achieved just through a lot of systematic and thorough low-level Bloom stuff, right? You play a lot of games, you look at a lot of games, you see how they work, and then you, most importantly, keep track of what's similar and what's dissimilar. And as you do that over hundreds, maybe thousands of games, as you play more games and expand the kinds of games and the range of games you play, you'll have such a broad experience base to draw from that to you what would seem so normal might be incredibly creative and unique to somebody else. Like if you played like dating sims and music rhythm games, and those are your two favorite genres, and you played them so much that it would make perfect sense for you to come up with a music rhythm dating game. And you're like, whoa, and so you're like, that's so creative, how did you think of that? Well, to that person, it's not nearly as crazy of an out of the blue jump, because they've immersed themselves and done a lot of their they've gotten a lot of experience in both things. So in some ways I feel like understanding creativity that way demystifies it, and it's less about these rules of thumbs and quick tips and quirky ways of thinking about learning, and more just about a very simple sort of equation, like put more time in, expose self to more things, have greater chance of coming up with combination nobody else has. Like, that's all it is. So yeah, in general, my approach to learning tries to demystify a lot of things and also to quantify them, to give people a very clear way of measuring their own aptitude and a very clear way of measuring how far it takes them to get to X goal, so that there's no mystery there. It's just a matter of doing the steps.
That makes sense. I think when I read this article, I didn't really read it as being, well, you shouldn't do structured learning, that you should do unstructured learning instead. I kind of, I think that the kind of the target audience for the article was, people who have already done a lot of structured learning, and he's kind of arguing like, well, you've done all that, and that's nice, but like you need to do more than just that. Like that's not enough. You need to like do this other thing, and he tries to kind of push on people to do this. That's kind of how I was reading it.
Mm-hmm.
It does kind of, you're right. It does kind of put down unstructured learning, or structured learning. I mean, so I mean maybe I don't know.
Yeah, it seems to me that if you read every single textbook there is on a subject, you'd have such a huge advantage on so many people. And that's all completely structured. The book is structured, it's organized, it's topical, and you read through it linearly. So, like, I feel like once you realize, or if you think that the more easy things to sort of pin down, like how many books you've read or how many topics you've, exposed yourself to or learned, then it's much more easy to understand how that correlates so strongly with the results that you might be achieving. With playing soccer as a kid, playing piano and violin as a kid, and doing all these different hobbies. Every time my professors and teachers and stuff were always just like, you got to put time into practicing. You got to do these drills. You also need to have fun with it and do things on your own. Like, all of that will basically get you to where you need to go. So I don't know if there's ever been an education environment structured that I went to that wasn't aware that the potential is always there and the steps that it takes to get there are always a matter of these very easy to understand, easily achievable things. So I guess in my mind, like, just growing up, it's like, yeah, of course. Like, you want to do better in the field and want to be better at other people, put more time into it. You want to be even better than that, diversify the kinds of times you put into it. Like, be disciplined about your drills and what you spend your time on, and so on and so forth. If you're never not playing chess or whatever, you're probably going to be good at chess. Things like that. And another thing about this article, it's less so about learning how to learn, and it's less so about illuminating the spectrum of learning and tying it to the way that we already understand education and learning and how we learn in and out of school. It's more about, I think, attitude adjustment, because the whole looking stupid thing and asking the third questions about not being embarrassed to keep going and having courage and doubling down your strengths. He mentions something in here about, like, people often self-select themselves out of usefulness, believing that their strengths aren't useful in the new domain, and they almost always are wrong. This is a thing that also, again, about confidence. So it feels like this is a pep talk rather than even... He's saying the hard thing about learning basically is your own emotions and feelings will block you from doing the things that you probably know are good, or you're probably already curious about, or you probably know you should do, and you are ultimately in your own way when nobody else is. That's probably how I interpret this article.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah. And from what I know and from what I talk about, yeah, attitude is such an important thing when learning. Like, having your expectations calibrated, knowing what to expect, those are the things that allow you to more effectively stay on the task and on program. Because so many people get discouraged and then they just stop. You're like, why did you stop? And then for whatever, it could be any reason, right? People can make up whatever reason they want to not meet their own expectations or to feel bad, but it may not be a good reason. It may not be an accurate reason. And a lot of times I feel like a huge chunk of motivation and keeping students engaged and motivated is setting those expectations. But yeah, a lot of this is designed directly into Enlighten, right? I've seen it. I've made a game about it. I've seen it firsthand. I watch as people play and then just like stop for whatever reason. I chart their progress. I look at what they're doing and talk to them and ask them how they're thinking. And there's so many sort of unspoken and subtle things that get in the way of learning that don't need to be there, that people don't realize can completely block them from achieving the success that they want to. That when the more likely people are to wing it and to do what they've always done and to go by how they feel, the more susceptible they are to the things that have always blocked them in the past. And that's why people tend to not, continually achieve new and new successes, because they are sort of married to their method, and their method was made out of it wasn't intentionally made, it was just a result of how many people encouraged them and how well they thought they should have done in XYZ curriculum in school and so on and so forth. And it's not really something that's conscious, robust, or self-examined. So yeah, Enlightened is designed to bring a lot of that out. But then the hardest part about getting people to realize that is they actually have to play the game to even get that far. And it just seems like if they could do that, then they wouldn't need it in the first place. So that's one of the primary struggles that I found developing the game. But you just started, so you were doing really well on the puzzles I saw.
Yeah, there was one that I took like a while to solve, but otherwise it went pretty smoothly.
Yeah, there's enough in there that at some point everyone should get stumped by one of those, right? So that's one of the basic ideas I had going. And then once you get stuck, how you got there and the data surrounding that will be very enlightening, to say the least. So now I'm switched over to Mega Man, but feel free to continue the topic or, peace out or do whatever you need to do. It's cool that you were interested and curious enough to, play my game and join us in the DO chat in the first place. You said you wanted to, get into game design down the line or make games eventually or something?
I'm interested in game design stuff because I actually tried to build a game back in, I think it was 2012 or something, and because I knew how to do like the programming parts of it and stuff, and I was able to kind of fudge all the other bits except for the game design, and because I was playing it just wasn't fun at all, and I just ended up kind of ending the project after 3 months. But it just wasn't. I didn't know what to do to like make the game fun. That was the next block was game design stuff, because I hadn't looked into game design at all before that. I've been learning all these other things like how to use Blender and how to do programming, and just never learned anything about game design.
Yeah, it's amazing how important it is and how little it's discussed and how little people know about it and how little people want to talk about it at all. It's amazing. Blows my mind. Boggles me.
I thought upon that situation was like, okay, well, in writing they have like editors, so maybe I could find like an editor to like help with the game, who could like tell me what was wrong with it or something. I think those do exist actually in game design, but I couldn't find them at the time. And I was like, okay, well, if I can't do that, maybe I'll just buy a book. There's bound to be like textbooks, right? So then like I couldn't find any of those either. And I was like, okay, well, whatever.
Yeah, it's a relatively new field, and what's out there, didn't give me a lot of confidence. Wow, really? Nah, that's fine. I just died in Mega Man. Yeah, so, I've written about, taught myself game design. A lot of what that article said, obviously I can directly relate to. I taught myself game design and basically wrote multiple textbooks worth of material, researching, like just solid research, not just like me blabbing my opinion about games I like or some mysterious dream game that I want to make, but actually like doing research and cross-comparing things and making models and drawing diagrams and doing a whole bunch of solid stuff. So I cut my teeth on that for like 8 years. Going as deeply as I could in every subject possible and continuing to play different games and push myself to understand more and more things I didn't know, do research, collect data, poll people, find out the truth. Oh shoot! Enemy spawning behind me. But yeah. So, as far as what I can evaluate from what else is out there, I mean, I've been doing this a long time as far as the language goes, and trying to figure out how people talk about these things. Oh no. Come on. This is stupid. Anyway, and it's just it's frighteningly disappointing that people refuse to sort of think deeply about a lot of these things and even be able to sustain a decent conversation or being able to articulate themselves or challenge their own opinion or do much of anything besides, feel entitled or get emotional about the opinion you think that they think you're trying to squash. So it's a lot different here, and a lot of our foundation is based off of simple observations about things, so you can actually count the elements of design that you're investigating and looking for. You can actually take some data on it and let the numbers convince you rather than people's rogue opinions.
It's interesting because there are a lot of games out there like Super Mario Brothers, Mega Man, and stuff that are really well designed. And it's like, so there's obviously people out there who know the stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Books on whatever. I don't know. It's an interesting state of things. I'm coming into it.
Yeah, a lot of people, as I say, are winging it, right? Which means they just kind of making it up as they go along and trying hard, and yeah, they try hard, but oh no! I shot my lights out. They try hard, but that doesn't mean that they're approaching it with the sort of rigor that they need, the seriousness, the structure, the curiosity or whatever, and that's important. And I don't know why people think they can get by with less, or that they should get by with less. That's kind of boggles my mind a little bit. But everyone has their different sort of ideas on what's quality is. That's why it's so important a lot of times for critics to be critics, but everyone thinks their opinions make them critics, and that's not quite how it works. So, this DL channel, our community goes as deep as you would ever want to go. Believe me.
I've been reading through some of your blog articles and stuff. I've read through the interesting decisions ones. There was a page on your blog for was it 101 Game Design 101 or something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where all the sort of curriculum organized articles are organized. So you can find them all in one place.
That stuff. All right.
Streaming?
Yeah, streaming some Mega Man right now and talking about learning.
Wow. The more important question is trick or treat.
Oh, is that the Splatfest?
Yeah.
Treat. Well,
I know.
trick, because tricks are more creative, and I can always eat. I can buy dessert.
There's treat definitely. Plus, trick is orange and treat is purple, so.
Oh,
I'm gonna
okay.
go with orange.
Okay.
Orange sounds good. Yeah, they have special equipment you can get, so be sure to pick that up.
Ah, come on. Yeah, how do you use that code that we got?
You had to go to the store or the shop, the eShop, and type it in.
Oh, eShop. I figured that was an eShop style code.
Yep.
I'm guessing Richard just got burned by a lava wall.
Yeah, come on. What is
Yeah, the
this?
second one, I knew it. He probably got stuck in that little hole.
Oh, let's see. They have to be slow here. I got stuck by the guy who puts up a shield and I couldn't take him out in time.
Oh, I just saw it.
Yeah, they gave you a free gear there because they want you to use slow. But I was like... I tried to use it, but my fingers got a little tangled up, and I'm like, I'm not used to holding L, playing this game, and talking at the same... Okay, get these guys away from me. So yeah, that fire was also not consistent. It was speed up, slow down. Oh, you need to go on the ladder? I'm going to slow down for you. Not good. Why did I do that? Stop it, Rush. Stop it, Rush. Ah! Okay, that was weird. I'm not sure I was supposed to get across. Was it supposed to like blow out his flames like this, and then right on top of him?
You need to use those powers.
I think I needed to shoot one flame off like this, and then jump on top. But that's a very narrow space for doing that for the first time. Come on.
Oh no, but you didn't learn the right lesson. Oh wow, you rushed over. It's funny.
Yeah, that wasn't supposed to drop the shot directly in between the holes. And I still don't know why the knockback feels like it's more straight down instead of like back to the platform you were on. Because those are really close to each other platforms. Second. That's a cool little... Oh, come on! That little left-right jump where you hit your head and fall back down? Come on.
Yeah, that's what I got stuck on.
Like, what the heck? Why even have that at all?
I don't understand. Like, get this out the game. Those are the little puzzle blocks too. Why is it so tight?
Yeah, they didn't get their like character smoothing over corner stuff right in this game. But like if you want to see a good example of the fire, you go to freaking Mega Man 10 Commando Man with the sand. So you can like play around in that and do multiple kinds of risk reward evaluations on the different environments and enemies. It's like much better, 1,000 times better, 1,000,000 times better. Had to go anime right there.
Tsundere.
Higher than this tsundere girl.
This is a cool little backdrop at the beginning of the level. A little town at the bottom of the map. Say Janiba?
He did. He did.
You know you can jump on the fire hat's heads, right?
After you cool them off, that's what I was saying before. Oh,
I
come
haven't seen you do it yet.
What was that? What did I get hung up on in my invincibility? Why didn't I jump? What was going on?
Your fire caught again?
No, look at it. You tell me.
I mean, you're about like a minute behind. Or
I'm ahead. I'm in the future.
I usually shoot the owls with the bouncy ball power.
That's funny.
Then I cool off the little fire heads with the block power.
Is that an E-Tank? They didn't even tell you what you get. That's just so. They need to polish a lot of these things. If you have a spinning roulette thing, you're supposed to basically shoot it to open it up, so that once you see what you get, you're like, "Yay, I got what I wanted," or you just display it above their head when they get it. Oh my gosh, I missed Rush. Why does Rush have the smallest hitbox ever?
Like if the bouncy ball doesn't let you shoot straight up, because that's what you freaking wanted.
Yeah, that's reserved for another power. I outran an explosion. What did I get hung up on here? Oh, there's a hole! I was in the spawn hole! Why? Why? You'll see it, and you won't know why. Having to switch to powers to fill them up, that should be like an automatic perk, but whatever. Give me stuff to buy, I'll buy it eventually. Oh, come on, I got down that hole. I need to use the L and R to cycle a little bit.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of practice.
Yeah. It's so funny how how much you have to get used to controls. Like none of it's a freebie. None of it. Even one button difference, it's got to be relearned. Everything has to be relearned because that's what learning freaking is.
Unless you're Genie and everybody gets one.
Oh, what's behind this
Everybody
bush?
gets
No more freebies.
All right, I ain't biting no more butts. These powers are cool, but Mega Man. I hate deactivating the power. I want the other button to deactivate it. Oh my gosh, you left behind that freaking... I did the same thing I did last time. I did so much better in my first attempt for dodging those things.
Chicken?
Yeah.
No, you're the first one to use the V10.
No, I mean before that I like didn't get hit by one of the setups. His animations is so overdrive ostrich. I love it.
Yeah.
That outstretched leg jump.
It's like quad weak stone attacks don't work.
I keep missing that. Oh wow, I just shot him in the chest right at the last second. That boss had a lot of hit points.
Yeah, if you put a good shots into him, he goes pretty cool.
I couldn't tell like how much my thingies were doing to him damage wise.
You know, Brock's kind of sucks. That
Yeah,
was a long cycle.
Yeah, it felt like it, but it blocks.
I mean, you have a long chicken. It's like blocking all your bricks.
Blocking all of them, or hit? Some of them were hitting.
One out of every 4 attempts was hit.
Color me surprised. Better than me completed. Is that me trading a hit with a small thing to die? Oh shoot.
You need to check on the achievos.
Matt, calm your Splatoon sound effects.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, I didn't learn.
Matt off. Platoon with you. As soon as Rich is done with his level. Man, these little spiders are like the worst. You can speed boost under those spiders. If you want. Rich is doing what I did. When I couldn't see, I just used the bouncy ball power. Takes forever for that owl to come back too.
Oh, it actually comes back?
Yeah, he comes back.
I was like, it's taking too long. It must never come back. It's taking too long. Where am I supposed to go? I'm supposed to probably kill that guy on the lower level?
I did not know that my phone had a max power saving mode that turned off everything. I was like, yeah.
I think there's a hole right here. Yep.
Punch through that.
These are nice lighting effects. to figure up. Oh, Bird came back. Frick. Is your name Frick? Oh shit. Frickle Rick.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah, that was going. You were stretching it there, Richard. Frickle Rick.
Frickle Rick? You were stretching it. Everyone was stretching it but me.
All the stretchings.
I should pay a little bit more attention, but I'm talking to Chris. These platform formations are weird. What is this? Just like, it feels like they just put platforms in places. Kind of like, oh, this is a neat little shape. You're like, what does that shape mean, though? And the fact that they give you these gear power-up thingies, which is kind of neat, but then, like, you can't really bank on them unless you knew they were gonna.
This is where I die.
That was so stupid. Oh, it was lame. I gotta wake my computer up. How many lives do I have? 0? Okay. Time to E-tank spam. Have no powers but the showers. It's kind of hard to get your powers back, which is what I like. I like it. I'm not gonna complain.
Who would want easy power? Kirby.
Wow. Wow.
Wow, wow, wow.
Oh.
She was flirting with it.
I've been practicing on Falcon all day, son. You better hop back. Oh! You didn't hop back. How about the rush type? Shoot. Man, they're making the enemies, the bosses move way faster than they normally do because they can freaking... I'm gonna take one more hit. I'm gonna... Okay. I can take another one. Man! You can't move that fast! You're not a Smash Brothers. Rolling Smash Brothers!
Smash Brothers.
He's really moving fast, and I don't want to have to like spam this. Yeah.
Fortunate for you. You have no choice.
Yeah. Oh, come on! Okay. Oh, jeez. You can't have a guy move this fast. Come on.
Charo. Charo.
That one hit me? Really? This is so lame. Touch your amiibo. I don't have an amiibo. Back. Jump with the D-pad, please.
Are you playing with the Wii? Are you playing with the Joy-Con, or are you playing with
Pro controller.
Provolone, yeah. This guy's going ham.
Mario Party.
Yes, sometimes before I was contemplating like what's the real point of is there Grizz up? Because we'll play Grizz unless you guys want to play League. What's the point of like? So that boss was a lot more complicated than your typical Mega Man boss, and he was also a lot cheaper because I guess they really want you to use slowdown. But to use slowdown like in neutral, I think is not a good thing. But to use slowdown when you know he's about to do something and you don't know where or when, that's like a tell. That's like, okay, if you don't know, then you better hedge. But he was just like moving and like kicking and like moving and like, okay, now I'm gonna jump across the screen. You're like, okay, you're kind of fast. Slowing down a lot. But anyway, sometimes I don't know, like, what's the point of me having to die there and go back through the whole level again just to get more exposure when he's that complex? Where so many things he does, I have to either use constant slow or learn from the hard way. You're like, well, I'll just pop my E-tanks because I don't see any point of going through the level again. I mean, if I wanted to play him with like a weakness power, which I didn't even test the bouncy balls. Spin steering into the air. This fireball crashes down on the earth, just like a Torchman's powerful kick. Oh, it's just like his kick. Okay. The strong version doesn't look any stronger. What's happening? Oh, I was doing the strong version the whole time. Just like Goku. Well, that's going to be it for today's stream. We talked a lot and I got to play a little Mega Man. Otherwise, I will hit the save button. Yeah, I'll save it here. Why not? These are my slots. How many E-tanks do I have? 2. And I have 1 W-tank. What? Okay. See you later, stream.